I have a job interview tomorrow, but it's not really like an interview. It's like one of those ones where it's like it feels like I have a job tomorrow type of thing because I applied for it, right? And like seconds later, someone calls me and they're like, "Oh, I'm calling about like the like position you applied for." And then they asked me questions, right? And they told me like they're looking to lock someone in because the other person like left and blah 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 blah. They told me information and they were like, "What do you know about like the company?" Or like, "Did you do research?" And I was like, "Bro, I just applied." And they're like, "Okay, that's fine." And then they invited me not to like a job interview, but they just said like come in for a tour. So it sounds like I have a job. Or maybe I'm just being like overconfident. My fridge is like buzzing. Wait a sec. Sorry. But yeah, it feels like I have it, but it's like a video position at a sports complex type place. Like that has like they just provide like locations and training and stuff like that for like a bunch of different sports. So they have like fields, indoor stuff, like courts and whatnot, like everything. And I saw their YouTube channel and they just do like training videos, event like promotion videos and stuff like that. And it's like just pretty cool stuff. Like it just looks like something that would be like fun to do full time. And I have for like a year, but I've never had like but that was like at that shitty company I worked at. I've never had like a full-time job at like a place. Like cuz out of high school I worked part-time at a video place. Then if that's what they want to call it. And then I went full-time at that place for like a couple months. And then I left because it was like they're all fucked up. And then I made my own business and I did that full time. But that was my own business. And the business made like 90 something K a year. And it didn't have that much expenses, but I was working like 7 days a week for like very, very long hours. So, and it was fun. That's why I was able to do it. But at some point, it got to a point where like the bigger the projects, like the more stressed and not even stressed, the more annoyed I got with the type of people that are able to afford those projects. Because it's usually like universities or like big corporations that can afford those like projects, and then they just treat you like, or at least in my experience, they treated me like horribly. So I got like tired of that. Then I switched over to just freelancing, so I didn't have like a team and I wasn't producing anymore. I was just doing like freelance work, like how I started. And so I was doing like just like freelance video work as like a videographer or like someone who just edits. Mostly most of the stuff I was doing was just editing work and like corporate animation work. So like text animations and things like that. And like intro like logo opening things. And it's funny because me and Rosie were just watching YouTube videos, and then like an ad came up in between, and it was using like my animations, and I was like, oh, it wasn't even like a big ad, but it was like, oh shit, that's the one I just did like a week ago, and now it just popped up on my TV. I thought it was cool, but I was doing that for like a year and a half now, and while doing that, I got a job at a cafe because that I like coffee, and I was like, maybe I'll just want to be like a barista my whole life. I try a lot of random stuff. So I worked at a cafe, and I was like, let me try that. And Although I like working at a cafe, it doesn't seem like something I would do like full time. So I started looking after a long break of from video or from full time video. I started looking at like actual companies, and one thing I realized is like, I don't even know how to explain it. It's like something I always could have done. Like the stuff they're asking for is stuff I could have done like straight out of high school. So maybe I should have been like full time job searching out of high school. But I guess I wanted to scratch that itch and see if I wanted to be a business owner and or a freelancer first. And now I know that it's not something I want to do full time. I do like freelance work, and the person that I talked to for the interview thing told me that that's still something I can do on my own time. But yeah, it's not something I would do like every day. It's not consistent enough for me. And although I did like the inconsistency at times, if that makes sense. But this would be cool if I got it. Um, my whole life I've worked in a way where when the workday is done, some people would say like it goes home with you, but the whole point is like the workday is not done when the day is done. And what I mean by that is like when I was in school, I left I left school, right? And then I had like tests and homework to study for. So did everyone else. It's just an example. But the day wasn't done. So you wake up, you go to school, you go home, and then you do homework, and then you study for tests and prepare for the next day. And then you go to sleep, and then you wake up and you do the same thing. And then you have the weekend off. And the weekend's basically only one day because Friday you still have work. That if you consider that part of the weekend. Saturday you have a day off. And then Sunday you're worried about Monday. You're doing homework and stuff like that. If you weren't already doing homework Friday and Saturday. So then I went to like work at that video place. And that video place I was working like these super long hours. And when I would go home, I knew I would have to wake up at like five. Oh, finally the fridge stopped. I knew I'd have to wake up at like 5 a.m. the next day. Or I went home just thinking about like the stuff I had to do the next day, and I had to like plan for it and stuff like that. So it wasn't like I was done when I was done. You know what I mean? Then even more when I started like a company, when I started a company, nothing was like there was no end of the day. Like it was like you go home and you're still answering emails, you're still planning like for shoots and stuff like that. You're still planning what you're gonna do the next day, and that one's like obviously because you have the like if you have like the audacity to like want to work for yourself, you're gonna have to work like a lot more even when you're home. So and I was working at home for part of it, but that's not what I meant. But but yeah, it's usually you're not done. And then freelance work. Doing freelance work wasn't as consistent as like owning a business. So it was like, but it was random. So it would be like one day you're doing nothing and you're waiting, and then the next day you get like a ton of shit, and you have to like start working on it right away. So that was just like super inconsistent. So I've never had like a consistent thing where you just, and that's why I liked working at the cafe a lot. That's like one thing I really liked about it because it was like one of the first times ever where when you go home, that's it. You go home and you had fun at work and you're done. And then you go the next day and then you have fun there just making coffee, and then you go home and you're done. But that I never experienced that before. I went home from school and I had homework. I went home from my other job and I had to plan for the next day while I was at home. I had a business. When I went home, I was still answering emails and talking to clients that were also up late because they also had businesses. I went home from freelance work. Well, I was home, but I was done. I didn't even have a freelance like work like day. It wasn't like a 9 to 5 thing because people would message at like random times, and it was the shoots were at random times, and it's just like all out of nowhere. So if I had this, and part of that's my fault, obviously, when it comes to like the freelance stuff. But when I have this, it's a steady, or if I get this, at some point, let's just speak like that. At some point, I will, because I've been searching for stuff. At some point, when I do lock in a full time job, um, it would be the first time ever that I would have like a consistent thing where I like go there, and it's not, I go there, I'm given the equipment and the like task, and I complete it the way that I want to a certain extent. And then that's it until the next day. The other thing is when you're like freelancing, you have to like, you're always working with like different budgets and things like that. And you don't have like equipment unless people give you like the budget for it. But something like this, you have that stuff like at hand because it's owned by like the company and stuff. Obviously, there's like defects or there's cons, but there's a lot of pros to it. So I just hope that I get that because it would be much easier to have like a consistent routine and to not always have to like hustle, because that's kind of like what I do when I go home from like other jobs. I just am still searching for other jobs and like ways to make money and stuff like that. So it would be cool to like have something where it's just consistent and reliable. And in a way, like people would say boring, but if you're waking up with no pressure on your chest and you're having like a good time at work, that's like completely fine to me. As long as it's not like, because if I was working full time at like a cafe, I would not be happy working there every day. It's like too much standing. There's a lot of rude customers. There's a lot of nice ones too. It's not for me. Like, it's not something I would want to do every day. So some days I would go home and be like, damn, like, I don't want to do this the next day. But I've never really had that. I have, let me not say I've never really had it because that wouldn't be true. But I'm hoping that, like, with something more consistent where I'm not having to worry about getting the projects um and stuff like that, it would feel better. Because that's the other thing, when you have a business or you're freelancing, when you're not working, you're like looking out for other projects and clients, because it's not like, oh, this task is done next. No, it's like you have to have been like scheduling projects in the like during the time that you were working on the other projects, you know what I mean? And like sending invoices and shit like that, which is a whole nother thing where like people don't want to pay you. It's just, I'm kind of speaking randomly. Hope it makes sense. But long story short,
I quit, I'm gay, and I love Xander.
thanks for watching.